Thank you.
Yeah, we don't know. We are. I don't believe so. I know Mark. He is. But just do. What's the representative from Sand Hill? Give me his name. John Gilbert. Gilbert. Do we expect him? I believe we do. Okay, we'll just give him a minute or so. Good song to start this.
I spent some time with Rat today.
Every rat has his day.
Good Alabama fan.
Oh my.
Yeah.
He is?
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
man. He was all over me with my hat on.
He's had some episodes. He may not be there.
Okay.
And I
Oh, I didn't bring mine.
not necessarily for him. He's already in a position.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention, please? We're going to start this workshop now. This is not a gaveled in. There will be no voting tonight. We'll just have a conversation and try to come to a conclusion. We know we're looking for solutions. I have spent since about 6 a.m. this morning with various committees and talking about different ways we can come to some sort of resolution so we can move forward with the 2021 assessment. Sorry, go back up. The 2021 assessment, and to try to come to some sort of a conclusion to this budget for this year. I'm going to go through what I've come up with, and then we can discuss that. And then if there's others, of course, they can have some time to discuss their plan if we get to there. I'm going to start with Mr. Shire and the Drainage Road Committee. Mr. Shire has cut $12,000 out of the drainage repair line, bringing his total ask to $139,700. It's a pretty simple thing. That is, like he said, Mr. Klutnar, his co-chair, will not be happy with him, but it is something that they can do and try to manage through that. Obviously, knowing that if there's a repair needed, he'll have to come to the board and we'll have to find money somewhere down the line. So again, this is where those funding choices become complicated with what we showed in the reserve study yesterday. Savannah, can you go to the amenities one, please? And then, yeah, so as you might remember, the amenities, we've cut $90,000 out of the herbicide, the fertilizer, and the repair and maintenance of the equipment and buildings. We've also eliminated any cart path repair work, any tree trimming repair work, and I think that was the bulk of it. That reduced that total to $397,000. If we go down to the reserve, please, just scroll down, please. I know it's a little cumbersome there. Thank you. We've used the quote from Mannix, which was $94,000 plus the handicap access, which was asked last night, of roughly $10,000, and we changed that number from 120 down to 105. And if we go all the way down, making the amenity assessment $502,000, which is $473.14. If we click onto the full budget, with those two numbers plugged in, road and drainage at $139,700 and the amenities down to $502,000, it brings the total obligations to $936,501, bringing the obligation to $882.66. That would be an increase of $182.66 from the current assessment. Go back to amenities, please. Any question?
Well, that's all right my way.
Oh, okay.
But
total, when we make the change to road and drainage and the change to the amenities, those reductions we talked about brought the total obligation to $936,000. Reducing making the total obligation when you divide that by 1,061 homes to 882.66. So the increase from 2020 would be $182.66. So that's kind of where we get to. As you remember, the initial thing that was approved by the board was a minimum of $200 from the Treasurer's Advisory Committee. So we listened to Mr. Potter, and we went into it and we did some, belt tightening in some of those areas. They are, in those areas that is not just fluff spending. Those are essential, and I think everybody should recognize that. Mr. Brett and Fairway Patio Homes, your people that are along the 17th Fairway will not get any trees trimmed next year. At all. Unless there's some surge of revenue through the golf operations that we all hope and expect. But I don't think any of us want to budget on a whim and a prayer. We're hopeful, but go back to the amenities one more time, please. Actually, I'm sorry. Go to the amenities one where we have the operational reserve one. Yes, that one. I want to remind the board of the average operational reserve that was for 18 and 19, the only two normal years, and I put the rabbit ears on it because 20 has not been a normal year, that the average for those 2 years was about $185,000. So the risk we're taking is that we get through the year and if it's a bombastic year, great revenue, then that operational reserve will not be needed. However, if we get to the end of the year or the end of the season, and for whatever reason, whether it's COVID, whether it's the Canadians not coming down, whatever the circumstances are, we may be faced with a shortfall. So then that would require the board, presumably, to go to the residents or find some sort of funding mechanism to keep the operations of the amenities afloat for the rest of the year. And again, that's rolling the dice on what's going to happen in the future. It's extremely difficult to forecast. Again, we're hopeful. However, that needs to be brought to your attention that 185,000 is a number that has historically been the average for those periods of time, or that period of time. So I guess we can go back to the budget summary one, which is the other one. Nope. Yes, and full budget. Are there any questions at this point? Does anybody have any thoughts? Does anybody have any other areas where they think they, I don't know, if we're talking cutting, I don't know where, again, where do you want to lead this conversation? Mr. Brennan, do you have a question? Or
yes,
you need, come on up.
I think everybody can hear me.
You've got a camera here. You got people out, our residents are out in YouTube land watching with enthusiasm.
Okay. I gotta have.
Okay.
We got a thumbs up. These are not mad, it's a good
Okay. I just have. Oh, are we okay? Yes. Okay. As you all know, I'm new to this. I've done a lot of studying in the last 2 weeks, but anyway, I have some questions, and the first one is, we are a Cypresswood Community Association, and we are the tenants. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we sublease to Cypresswood Golf and Country Club LLC. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Then the the LLC is really in charge of everything. The building, the golf course,
The amenities.
the only, yeah, everything, okay. I may be wrong, but I thought you said last night that the only thing that the golf course would pay was $105,000 a year based on the 150 lots at $700.
That's
Is
the
that correct?
assessment, and then there's the additional profit that would happen if it's realized during the period of time where I hold a note for the CCA that was in that operating entity agreement.
Okay, then, in other words,
There could be more.
if the
There
golf
could-
course makes a profit, then the,
The CCA would realize
The
that
CCA
as
will-
long as the paper for the loan is being held.
right, okay. I'm satisfied with that. Okay, right now, well, I'm going back to September the 30th, because that's the only figures that you gave me
Right.
that I have,
That's
that I
the-
got off
That's
of
the
there.
latest ones.
We have $622,000 available to us. That's $577,000 for the reserves, and at that time, we had $45,000 in cash. That, I know that that's changed by now. So the only income that we have, as far as the association is concerned, is $700 times 1,061. Is that correct?
Right,
Okay.
yes, that was the 2020 assessment, yes, sir.
Okay.
And some interest on some investment vehicles that are, but it's, minuscule
Okay.
compared
Right,
to the
right,
assessment.
okay. Well, the other thing that I'm gonna mention is that, for us to come up with a plan tonight, only 24 hours from the time that we were given to come back here, I don't think that's enough time for us to really come up with a plan. And I don't think that's gonna happen tonight myself. I don't feel that it can happen. Okay. Then, in reality, then, the amenities under the lease is the responsibility of the LLC. Is that correct or not correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so the reserves, the 622,000 that I mentioned earlier, and the assessments for 2021 would be $1,364,700. Okay, now the only other question that I may have one more besides that. The budget worksheet, I think that you had that up there the other day for 2021. The road drainage, the landscape, the traffic, and the general and amenities, or the administration, and the utilities, and the general reserves. Yeah, what are they? Are they what we have to budget? And that's the anticipated cost of these things for next year?
That's those committees' budget proposal and approval from this board that are in there. Those are their funding needs, call it that.
Okay.
And that are their funding needs for each of those categories.
Okay, and the final question I have is there any reason why we can't just have a general reserve rather than all of these listed, and just make it one reserve and accumulate it, and as we need the money, it's going to be there. We don't have to put $152,000 away every year or whatever that the original quote was.
So you're asking if the board could decide to take all of the reserves and put it into one thing?
I mean, as far as I know, based on the thing, the board could choose to do that if they wanted to. To me, that gets a little bit like this giant pot of money that people are just dipping their hands into. Although that this board, as it knows, and for those of you that don't know, that every financial decision is decided by this board. So I think in the end of the day, it's just about planning. And again, I think when you talk about roads and the way they have to forecast the need over the course of years, it makes sense that that would be in the road schedule to do it. The same thing with, landscape. Those people we're putting the responsibility of these tasks in these individual committees that are bringing, you know, their spending plans to the board for approval, and I think that they do a pretty good job of that, you know, and they do have checks and balances within the committee, from the committee chair to this board, and people ask questions, or at least they have the opportunity to. And often at those budget meetings, they ask questions that are pertinent. You know, as far as, you know, some of the other questions, this board made the decisions, as we all know, we went through it about 23 times in the last week or two, to take out the two $1 million loans for the golf course, and then discovered during that period of time that the way the trajectory of the golf course revenue does, that they were going to have to support it to maintain those investments. So, you know, yes, you could cut off the operational reserve to the LLC. Then my remedy is to cut the fertilizer, the herbicide, and the labor needed to maintain the facility. And it was determined when we did that 3 years ago that that didn't seem to be a prudent play, because we're still holding those two $1 million notes for the next 15 years, or almost 15 years. So, you know, again, the goal is to have the operations amenity be self-sufficient. That's the goal, and that's where we're trying to work towards.
Okay, that's good.
Okay? Sorry.
I just want you to answer that next question.
Okay. So,
You don't have to do that.
no, I'll do it. I'm not afraid of that. So his last question, I mean, he said, we're on YouTube. I mean, everybody in the world, you got 89 billion people watching us here. God, I hope they're not all watching us. His question is, who gave the loan to Bob? So let's talk about that for a little bit. You know, the board did. The board agreed to it. We entered that operating entity agreement. It says that that I could borrow up to $150,000. So far, it's 51. I hope, and they would have been this week, because it's been every 2 weeks that we've been sending the recreation amenities to send out the request for the fund. Don't need it this week. Hopefully, the golf course is open Monday. We won't need it in 2 weeks, and we'll make it through, and that's the end of it. So the total obligation, the board put that in there so that, again, we had COVID, we had closure, and we ran out of cash. And we asked the attorney if it was okay for the community association to loan money to the LLC. It was determined that it was okay. The board agreed to it. We signed a promissory note for each of the installments, and that's what it is. So,
That's good.
okay.
And I did want to make a point of clarification. The loan's not to Bob. It's
To the
his-
LLC.
It's to the LLC.
I know.
He's the LLC though.
Well, you
Well,
Not really.
Not technically. Right.
Will
Never,
you
never
point
assume.
out why you were in for 5 years?
It was part of the loan agreement that the known operators stay in place for the first 5 years. That was part of the loan agreement. The bank felt that was a level of comfort for the operations to remain stable for that time period. Mr. Tucker.
You also do not draw any, you draw the money up. You have not got $150,000.
Correct.
You've only drawn
$51,000. Yes, sir. That is correct. Mr. Hammond?
Yes, one other point too is, Bob, is that it was also John Wood who wanted the LLC to stay in place because he felt that in the leasing agreement, if we were to switch horses, so to speak, with you, that not only would we be taking on something new ourselves, but have no one experience at all necessarily from the very word day one. And then it turned out that the bank demanded it, so it's really two things.
It was part of the negotiation of the
Yeah.
deal, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Best interest, so to speak.
Yes, correct. Best interest, best business practices, that sort of thing. Okay, do we have any other thoughts? Do we have any? Yes, Mr. Brett?
I would like Jim to explain this a little better, this handout that he gave us last night.
Okay, well, let's do one at a time. Is everybody got this idea kind of in their head? They understand what it is? Yes, Martha? Come on up here to YouTube then.
I spent some time trying to cut things.
No.
But I want you to understand why the amenities line is so big. It is big, more than anybody else's. That's because out of that line comes $15,000 for property taxes that must be paid. Out of that line comes $182,000 that is our debt service. That's on the two loans together. That must be paid. We have property and liability insurance. That's included there again. That's $48,000. To keep our pool open, I'm not talking about fixing it, I'm talking about our regular pool service that must be done to have it open. That's another $10,000. If we're going to do a minimum of herbicide and fertilizer after we've just put $1.6 million into the golf course, that's $110,000. So that number is not a big number you can cut because it's so much of it is already dedicated to things that must be paid. And when you say you want more time, that's what we're here for. And I'm frustrated because I don't think you folks understand. If you sit on an HOA board, you have Florida statutes that you have to meet with regards for your budget for the coming year. And you have to have postings of when those meetings are and if dues are going to be raised. And if you keep kicking this down the can, you can't do that. This CCA does not fall under that. That's why we can have these meetings. But we are here to work out these problems. We can't keep kicking it down the line because our HOAs will run out of time.
Thank you. Any other questions on this? Mr. Hammond, do you have Mr. Hammond was first. Do you have a question? Come on up, Jim, please, unless you can scream into YouTube land.
Well, you can repeat it. The question is, speaking of deadlines, our HOA's next meeting for budgetary purposes in order to meet our statutory requirements that she just brought up is on the 12th of November.
Correct.
Are we the earliest, or is there somebody who's meeting between now and the 12th?
You've already met.
Oh, you've already met, so you're gonna have to re-meet.
We had our budget workshop, and it's all tentative based on what happens here.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of where we are too. We've had a budget workshop as well. Okay, so, but is there anybody who actually, our point of action deadline is the 12th, in order to have enough time to send notices out, so on and so forth. Is there anybody else with a quicker one?
We're right where you are.
Okay, all right.
Okay, you're,
Around the 19th.
no, you
Okay,
can-
so we're.
we're all in the first week and the first week
Okay,
is,
that's what I wanted to know.
Trying to get him as close as
So everybody's in about the same situation. Okay.
right, because it's, you're the what, Mr. Brett? The 5th of November, okay?
Their way is Thursday.
All right.
The Thursday.
Before we go to a new proposal, why don't we finish?
Well, that's what so can we go to the full budget, back to the full budget? I'm sorry to keep flipping you around like crazy. So is there any appetite here at $182, Mr. Shirer?
I've been, I'm willing to work with that. I was one of the strong supporters of a $300 increase to $1,000, simply because I know that even at $1,000, we're not properly funding anything, but we can't seem to get this board to agree. So to get this board to agree, I'm willing to do things that I don't think are fiduciarily correct, but I'm willing to support this budget of only a $182 increase.
Okay.
Not lecturing anybody, I'm just trying to, where is that gentleman that was just up here talking?
Mr. Brennan.
Mr. Brennan, there's a lot of members of the board that, when we were sitting in your shoes without a few
few years under your belt, like where you're sitting right now, it was difficult. But I want to remind everybody that we've been working on this budget for months. If you look at this line up here, we took $118,000 out of what we started with when we were at 300,000. We just spent about $1.7 million on the golf course. And I said last night that I wrote out the Greenleaf yesterday because I hear a lot about it. I just wanted to see. But I don't know what any of you guys have done relating to the November 7th tournament that's going to be here. I raised $3,200 for that. I don't know what y'all did. I donated $50 cash for it. They can divide into $10 going prizes. I sponsored a whole $150. I got one of those $2,500 platinum donations. Got a $500 gold donation. And everybody in this room, that golf course is important to this whole community. Nobody's, and I'm not hearing anything about it. We had a guy stand up here last night and tell us what a pile of crap the golf course looked like. You know, that kind of stuff's insulting. Because the golf course doesn't look like that at all. We had somebody else stand up here last night and say that we were paying Hayes and Son $1,500 to paint the men's room. That's a bald-faced lie. They gave us an estimate of approximately $1,500 to touch up this entire building, because when we have that grand opening and the golf tournament, we want this building spit shine and looking really good. We couldn't hire enough help to get the golf course spit polished like we really wanted. So Bob had to go out, get a contractor to come in here and make sure. And you know, I don't play golf, so it's hard for me to talk golfers' language. But when I talk to men who don't live in Cypresswood but come here and play other courses, they say things to me like, when I walk out on that golf course and I look at the sand trap, I don't want to see any grass growing out in the sand trap. I want to see it. I like to see the beauty of the course helps draw people that play. And then they were talking tee box. I don't even know what a tee box is. But they brought it up to me. I didn't bring it up to them. I wouldn't even know to say it. I do know that when the RAC committee met on that second loan, we had thought that we would spend about $725,000 and just do the greens. When the proposal was actually laid out in its entirety, given what we're really trying to do, in that the golf course is the biggest revenue producer here, we decided to delay a couple of things and really do the whole golf course. So for the guys that are new here, you don't know that. I don't even know the meaning of some of it, but I know because I sat in on those discussions and I was a part of the group that said, well, it would be better not to do this and let's get the golf course to a level. And some people got up here in some of our meetings and said, well, we were at a 2, what's wrong with just going to a 4 instead of going to a 7? Well, the difference between being a 4 and a 7 is about double your revenue. That's the difference. So one other thing, and I'll sit down for now. Remember, most of us plan to have our final budget meeting mine's in less than 3 weeks. So we got to have a budget. Then I've got to mail the budget proposal and a bunch of other documents that have got to get to them people in time, so that, and post my sign on the street, but the mail is the main thing. We already know what the mail service is doing. So while it may seem to a couple of you that we're rushing, we're not rushing, gentlemen. We've been working, for a couple of you, I can understand how you might think that. 'Cause you got a lot to learn there. I understand that. I've been there. But we're not rushing, gang. We need a budget.
Thank you. Anybody else? Sure, no, this is a workshop, so yeah, I don't mind you. We need to come up with a plan.
Yeah, and, you know, frankly, I support, you know, let me rephrase that. I just hope we can find some compromise here. This is not all or nothing for me, never has been. What is for me is that I invested a whole lot of money in a house in Palmacia. A lot of money. Okay? I'm like the lady that says, you want to die here? I've already told my wife, you're not moving me out of here till the funeral home comes and gets me, or I go to the nursing home. So I'm committed, substantially committed. I didn't buy a golf cart. I bought a golf cart. I told you I bought golf clubs and didn't buy a golf golf membership because of the condition of the course. I used to be an avid golfer. I had knee surgeries, taking me a little while to get recouped. But my point is, as soon as the golf course looks good, I wrote a check for $3,000. I'm not the only one that's going to start writing checks because the golf course looks good. He operates this golf course with 7 people. You know how many Southern Dunes operates their golf course with? 17. If y'all don't think he's not pinching pennies, managing this money the best he can, utilizing old equipment when he really needs new equipment, and making do with the best he possibly can, you just haven't looked around. And we're not trying to be necessarily Southern Dunes. We're not trying to be Winter Haven Country Club. You want to be a part of Winter Haven Country Club? Get ready to fork out $600 a month by the time you pay your dues and by the time you do a food minimum. So, look, why did I also pick the house I picked? Because it overlooks the fairway of number 3 and has, I think, one of the prettiest lots in all of Cypresswood. Do I want that after spending $1,700,000 to not be caretaken to a reasonable level? The answer is no, I hope we do. And I've said it before, we got to look at this on a holistic, community-wide basis. It's 3,000 people here. I get it, some don't want to play golf. I get it, some don't want to swim in the pool. I get some of them don't want to work out. That's fine. But I came here because I knew we had strong support for the lease. I came here because I knew we had strong support for the debt. And now all of a sudden when we're sitting here and trying to figure out how to put a budget together so that we can reasonably maintain this golf course and reasonably maintain our amenities, and we still haven't even talked about a serious reserve for the amenities that we've inherited, you know, it makes me wonder, can I get my check back on a long-term basis? Because I'm being honest with you. It's a little bit frightening to me to think that I don't have a group of a board that's willing to look at it from a long-term perspective and do what I think is in the best interest to follow. I mean, the budget's already been approved in the committee, and weeks ago, and here we are still hassling about it. So, I'm befuddled. I too have invested hours and hours and hours. I'm done investing my time at this point. This is the last time you're going to hear me talk about this. And for some of you, you're probably clapping your hands in silence. But I'm just being honest. I think there's, you know, Mr. Brown's a good friend, now a good friend of mine. He's here for a lot of the same reasons I'm here. He doesn't play golf, but he still supports the golf course. He still supports the community as a whole, and he wants to, and he put a lot of money in his house, just like I have. And so I just implore you to think about this from a holistic perspective of the community. Recognize what this community has always been, and recognize The sweetheart deal that we had under John Wood, those days are over. I'm sorry. I don't like it either, that the dues are gonna have to go up this much. I also don't, like I told you, don't like having to pay an extra $1,000 a year to the city of Winter Haven. I'd rather donate it to y'all. But, you know, I'm stuck with that too. But my point is, let's find some common ground here as a board and be willing to support the previous board's decisions. And let's do what's right for this community. And look, I'd love to see the pool taken care of, the tennis courts taken care of, get all these amenities up to speed, have a playground for kids, have a dog. I'm for all that, and I'm willing to write a check for it. Okay? And I hope that somewhere we can find some happy ground in here, and let's do something that I think is personally, physically responsible to do. And if we don't, I guess I'll be talking to my wife about whether I made the right decision.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. You have a question?
I get the impression that some folks do not want to have any raise at all. And I guess I need to find out, are you willing, or are you just gonna sit on no raise? And if that's the case, then we need to start cutting traffic control. We need to start seeing where we're gonna cut. And I don't know where some of you folks sit.
Martha, I'm ready. I want to have a conversation tonight. I want to have a conversation.
Do you want to go next?
Do I? I want to have a conversation with everybody.
Okay.
Everybody that's on the board. All right, so let's start talking about the golf course. What do you guys think about the golf course? Personally, I think that it's the most important and the biggest investment that we got, and I believe it needs to be protected. I don't know that I agree with cutting the herbicide and what else did you say you had?
Fertilizer.
I don't know that I support that. I don't know that I support that. And I think we should go down these categories, talking about dog parks, tennis courts, and get into a need and get into a want. And I think a golf course.
Savannah, can you go back to the amenities?
None of those things are in this budget.
None of those things are. We had to cut them out.
So, and go all the way down to the reserves, please, just to the end. So the only thing that's in play for 2021 is the swimming pool. Mr. Shire at the.
Well, can I ask a question?
Yes, you can.
What is done right now? Are you saying the golf course is completely done and ready to open soon?
The golf course is opening Sunday.
Nobody's putting any more money in the golf course, except for maintenance purposes.
The operational money that is, yeah, there's not, again, the only thing we put on it, again, is for, well, on the other side is the cart path and the trees, and then the normal maintenance.
Let's talk about the cart paths.
Uh-huh.
How far along are we on that?
Well,
let's talk about it.
the cart paths, we currently have allocated $35,000 for cart path repairs. We have a contractor in place who's got a portion of the concrete work in process. The contractor for the paving of hole number 7 and the paving of the area up here is not ready to come in and do it right now. Okay, but that money, that money has already been set aside from the loan.
Great.
So that is not in this.
Great.
What we're not going to do is redo all the concrete cart paths. And there's a tremendous amount of damage out there, but all golf courses have that kind of damage on their cart paths. So we will then look like all other golf courses. What we had done was put $5,000 a year in there for anticipated future cart path repairs.
Okay.
Because no one will accept the $300 increase in that budget, we're not going to do any cart path repairs and try to get you guys to accept a $190 increase.
That's a good answer. That's great.
That's clean. That's what we've done. We've gone through and scrubbed it of all that kind of stuff. So there's going to be no tree trimming on the golf course. We're not going to work on cart paths. We're limiting ourselves on food and medicine for the golf course, which is a stupid damn thing to do after you spend $1.6 million on it.
I agree.
But we can't come to a decision here.
That's what we're doing tonight. I want to consider this like there's locks on the doors.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with it.
Okay.
That's where I'm at. We're keeping emotion out of this and making this business. That's great to hear, but I think we need to talk about the herbicide. We need to cut it someplace else. If we were to cut something else, if we were to talk about something else, I want to talk about the dog park, the tennis courts, the basketball
Steve,
field.
hold on. There's no
no
money in
money
that for next year. So the only
None.
thing in the reserve section that can be cut at this point is the pool.
That's the only thing.
So if the pool comes out, yes, you lower it by $100 and it becomes a $100 less assessment.
I went to the pool today and I saw it.
So again, you're taking a risk. It's the same thing with the herbicide and all, and the operation, not having the money for the operational support, is if you do get a situation where, and they may never close us. Mrs. Ray made that point, they may never close us.
I spoke to them. I spoke to Don.
So,
And he said that, yeah, I've been telling them for years they need to, resurface it. He said, but we're not gonna close it down for that.
sure, but
It's still functioning under what the guidelines of the health department.
it is. But, however, I will say that a local pool had the same situation. Don was their inspector. He got the tile finish thing, and then all of a sudden they switched inspectors. And that inspector came in and cited they had to stop until they did redo it. Now, I'm not, we can roll the dice. But if they close it, if they change inspector, and they may not. But the reason why the pool was put in was because certain residents said that we have to do something for all the residents. And the pool is accessible to all the residents. Not everybody plays golf, but everybody could enjoy the pool if they chose to. So that's why Mr. Shire made that statement back at that meeting, and we removed all the minor reserve amounts that were in there and added it all into the 120,000 pool.
Can we talk about the pool?
Sure.
All right, so I went down, go ahead.
Can I say just one thing?
Please.
The pool's gonna be too cold to go into until, what, May? Yeah.
For us, warm-blooded Florida Indians.
Well, in any case, eventually it's going to be too cold to use. Right now, it's functioning fine. Okay, it's not the best in the world, but it's functioning fine. The ladies love their exercise. People go and swim. I swim laps. I swim an hour each time I go. It's good exercise. But if we have to, it's functioning. It's fine. People are enjoying it. It doesn't need to be an area to dump, a lot of money into right now when we have other things that are more critical. We can leave it the way it is, hope for the best, which we're hoping on a lot of other things right now too. But it's
With
still,
these cuts, we are.
yeah, it's still functioning. There's, that's $105,000 right
You're
there.
right. And Mr. Shire said that after we potentially do the pump on the south side, and after we repave our roads, we're gonna have $65,000 in reserves ish. What was that number? I don't wanna.
What we'd be down to 138,000, and then there's.
We have to accrue for the next road use.
And then we have the road thing. So we're actually going to be in a position where our total reserves, which Dick had spoken to, of $600,000+ is going to be down to a number. It's going to look like $75,000.
Right.
And that is the only free cash that we have sitting around. So just hope there's not a hurricane and we need to have some kind of emergency cleanup, because that will call for a special assessment.
Mr. Hammond.
Yes, I don't want to speak to my suggestion from last night just yet, or maybe not at all. But what I would like to do, and I'm going to come to that.
Okay. Come on down. We're trying to find the sweet spot.
Trying to help you.
I know. We're trying. I think it's right about here. Seems to be.
What, where we need to stand?
You need to stay right there. We need to stay away
Yeah,
from
for
each
the
other, 'cause
microphone.
apparently
Oh,
my
that's
magnetic personality kind of interferes
Oh,
with this.
okay. Here's, can you hear now?
Kind of.
Okay.
Speak loud.
Okay. something that's being confused here. And I want to go along with what Robert Dodd said. First of all, the budget that was prepared with the $300 in it, or the budget that's now with $180 and odd dollars in it, neither one of those budgets are anywhere near what needs to happen. Now, anyone who has the cheat sheet that I handed out last night, okay, take a look at it for just a minute. Right in the middle, there's a chart, okay? And it totals down there $1,069,200. Okay? That is the goal. Till you reach that, you don't have a dog park, you don't have tennis courts, you don't have the child playground, you don't have the pool, you don't have the reserves, and you don't have the project here completed. So, every year now, until we accomplish $1,069,000, okay, with whatever is above our operating part, our operating necessity, would you say our operating necessity is now that number right there?
No.
I think it is. It's pretty close to it. Okay? Now, there'd be people who would argue that that's below our operating necessity. Okay? I kind of think it is too. Okay? Personally. All right? So, what I'm suggesting is that, let's say at the 300 or at the 182, next year we will be standing right here talking about the very same subject, okay? So I am sorry I didn't put a pencil to $1,069,000, okay? But if you took $1,069,000 and roughly divided that by 1,000, that's $1,000 more. Everybody follow me? Okay. So the number really is not 182. I think that was the number, right? 182, 188, whatever.
188.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or 300. The number really is 1,000. Now, the question becomes, how do we pay for that? Okay? That's the bottom line. I mean, anybody who thinks anything other than that is completely kidding themselves. Okay? Completely kidding themselves. That's the real bottom line. Okay? Now, my only suggestion here was a different way to pay for it. Okay? And I'm not sure this budget right here scares me. It scares my right, Jason? I mean, we're kind of concerned, okay? Jason Holland over here in the blue shirt is on our board, okay, at Cape Club Patio, okay? This number scares us, okay? For the same reasons that Robert brought up. I mean, I don't agree with every one of his, but 99%. Don't agree with everything Bob said, or everything Bill said, or Ben said yesterday. But I agree with most of it. Okay, they're pretty close. Okay, I've been involved with this, Mike, as long as most people here. Okay, especially since the leasing and all that. Okay, and I can tell you for sure, not guessing, for sure, we're way too low. Okay, and it comes with risks. This budget comes with a very big risk of demanding us at a time when the majority, well, not the majority of our people, but a significant number of our people, our residents, are not going to be here. And that makes it very difficult for all of us to communicate with them.
That's scary.
That is scary. You understand where I'm coming from, Steve?
Yeah, I do, buddy.
Okay, I think you're getting this now, right? Okay, so the point is not what do we do, but how do we do it? got to get there. Now, my view is the sooner we get there, the better off we are. Okay? Now, have we made a mistake in doing the things that we've already done? Absolutely not. I'm absolutely in favor of it. Okay? I own 2 homes here. My wife just inherited another one from her mother. And so I'm debating on which one of these associations I might live in next year. You follow me? So, because all 3 of them are in a different place. Okay? So, the point I'm trying to make is, I'm like Robert, I'm committed here. I don't intend that really, but now I own, my wife and I, or I should say my trust, my wife and I own properties elsewhere as well that aren't here in this vicinity at all. We were very fortunate to be in business and to have that ability in different parts of the country from where we're from, and so on and so forth. So, that aside, this is our favorite place, here, okay? Because of the convenience, and so on, and for business purposes. So, I only bring this up because I want to get everybody realistic, really into what this really is, okay?
Well, hey, will you please explain this?
Oh, okay, sure.
Please, I'm asking, please.
And remember this morning,
Yes.
where he tried to explain it to me, and it was challenging.
It's a conversation.
It is.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. Well, I'll try. Okay. The big piece that that my board feels to be out there is what I just said. Am I right, Jason? Yeah. Okay. We want the big picture. I feel the biggest problem, and I'm not reflecting on. Look, everybody in here has worked hard. I'm not going to downplay anybody. Okay. Especially those who are on the tax committee and the RAC committee, because they've spent endless hours. I've spent quite a bit of time, but nowhere near what they have, okay? And I appreciate very much their efforts to do that, okay? And so I don't want to take away from that, okay? So what our effort was, as we were looking at it, Club Patio, and how it was going to affect where we need to go, okay? And how we're going to fund that, and so on and so forth, we said to ourselves, well, can we enter into the process in some way where we can offer some other solution, okay, that might work? Now, the downside to this is, the risks here are, okay, that, as I've just said, I want to go over this to be sure before I go into the other one, that we could be short on what we need to do to care for the golf course. We could be short on some other emergency somewhere else that we do not have adequate reserves for. And Bill, that number of $75,000 don't go very far if you have a bum pump, right? Or it doesn't go very far if right at the 4-way stop, that culvert that darn near collapsed on us. Now, you guys did a good job of getting that fixed, okay? But there's other culverts, okay? And so on and so forth. You see where I'm coming from there? We don't have a reserve, really, for more than what is just right on top of us, okay? All right, so that's the downside here. So we'd be talking about some sort of an assessment. Okay, now the plan I'm putting forth here has some serious downsides too, okay? All right, but the plan is basically this. I wanted to find out what the lowest denominator was for the actual operating budget, okay? I think they've pared it back about as far as they could. We took another stab at it. Instead of 182, we came up with, in our part one, of $6.68 a resident, okay? Well, now, Ben, before you laugh too hard, what we did is we moved a big chunk of that money.
I know where you moved it to.
Okay, all right. We moved it to another area, and we're going to fund it in a different way. okay? All right, that's under part 2. So you'll see in 1 where we took roughly $400,000, a little less actually, 300,000, and moved it down here to this list of things that need to be done, because those actually are projects, Ben.
I understand.
Okay, so we
Okay.
said, okay, well, could we fund them some of the way? So we said, all right, well, what if we, instead of decelerating, which is what this budget's doing, these other amenities that everybody would like to have, what if we accelerated them? So that the people outside the room over the past few days, past few meetings, I should say, got more of what they wanted, okay, so that they were a little more agreeable to paying a higher rate, okay? So we said, all right, well, what would all that come to? That's what this list is here, okay? That is adding the swimming pool at 120, well, maybe 105 will do it. What I did is I went back through all of Rack's notes, okay, and some notes that I had from some of the leasing agreement negotiation and so on, and I found the highest number for each one of these things. I wanted the worst scenario. You follow me, Robert? Okay, I wanted to find what was the highest number, okay? The highest number I could find for the dog park that was written down, now there may be a higher number, I don't know, but the highest one I could find was 10,000. The highest one for the tennis court specifically was 45,000, but I think, if my notes are correct, that includes the pickleball, okay? But then if you go to 4, I'm a little confused because the basketball and pickleball were referred to as 25,000. So I'm not sure if the 45 covers all of those things or it takes the total of the 45 and the 25 to cover all of those. Am I making this clear?
Yeah, it's both of those.
It's both of those? Okay, all right, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
All right, then the children's playground, boy, there was a bunch of numbers there. And I think that depends on how elaborate a playground you put in.
Exactly.
But the number that was the largest one I saw was 25. Now, there may be other numbers that are higher than this, I don't know.
That's not correct,
Yeah.
but that's okay.
Well, I mean, for our discussion for this point, I'm just trying to come up with a number.
That's your low number.
That's the low number?
The low number is 34,
Oh, it is? Okay, well, I didn't find that in print anywhere.
because you have to include the surface.
Oh, I see, okay, all right, well, I didn't see that number. Okay, well, then this number's low, okay? And so on down the list here. Okay, these are the numbers I came up with. Looking back through the notes that I had and conversations with several of you here. All right, so now what we thought was, okay, well, some of these really shouldn't be considered right now, and I think the biggest one that we shouldn't necessarily consider right now is the front, is number 8, the front sign and fence. It showed 200,000. There was one at 382,000 or something.
Yeah.
I sort of tossed that one out because after speaking with you and Bill and Rick Reese and someone else, they sort of thought that the culmination of those discussions was around 200,000. Okay, for both the sign and the fence. Okay, and the entryway adjustments or whatever you want to call that after they finish the roadway. But I think that's premature to do. So I said, all right, well, the little carrot signs out there, those mean at the right, that's that little arch, if you will. Okay, that 160 for the roof, the 200 for the fence and so on, which comes to a total down there of about 508,000. Those are things I think either we've already done. I mean, the building looks beautiful. It only took $1,500 to touch it up, or is going to, okay? So I think things look pretty nice. So the painting obviously does not have to be done now. You see what I mean? It's just been done. But in order to come up with a reserve number, which is the other column there, to know what the reserves ought to be for each and every one of these items, okay? Which does not include the golf course main part of it. I'm talking about the irrigation system, the greens, the tee boxes, so on and so forth, which is $1.7 million roughly, right? Okay.
It does not account for anything there. It assumes that we would reborrow money whenever it came time to do that. Okay? What did I just say? Reborrow money. So, I said, well, or we said, it's not just me. Okay, that means then that loan we might do now would accelerate the ability to use all of these other items. Almost a year, maybe 18 months. But just like the two loans that we've had, each for $1 million, when you take out the loan for the $1 million, that doesn't mean that the bank writes you a check immediately for $1 million. They do not. What you do is as you spend the money throughout a period of time that you forecast with them that you're going to need that money, you draw out and you pay interest beginning there on what you've drawn out. And you pay interest on it until you've paid it back, whatever the term is that you've agreed to. Okay? Doesn't mean you can't pay any of it back early, right, Ben?
That's correct.
We could. All right?
It's a line of credit.
Pardon?
You do it in the form of a line of credit.
Oh, exactly. That's the correct term. Yes. A line of credit. So you're paying interest.
Be careful about that.
It starts that way.
It starts that way,
And then converts to a mortgage.
converts to a term loan.
Right, exactly.
Correct.
Right. So, yes, thank you. I agree with that. So the point I'm kind of making is that we suggested that perhaps we do it this way, all right? And we accumulate some of those things. Now, downside. And so part 3 is the total of those reserves that we would be required, which, as you can see, is $91,400, and that itself is 86. That's if these numbers are all correct. And I'm sure if we go through it here over a little while, and I'm not talking about days, probably a few minutes, people in the room here will know what the real number is for each one of these. We could refine this pretty quickly, I would guess. Or something that's pretty close. Maybe not an exact number, Martha, but something that's pretty educated. Is that fair to say? Okay. All right. So much more educated than mine is. Okay? Or ours is. Because I know just in Jason and I talking with Gary on the phone and so on and so forth, and our other board members, we had some exotic numbers here. Okay. That being the case, just that part of it's 86. So what I'm suggesting here is we do the 6, we do the 80. Heck with it. We do the 86, and then borrow the money for the ones that appeared to be something that we could catapult forward. And you'd have to approach it that way with the bank, because if they perceived that we were doing it only to cover our costs that we weren't willing to do for ourselves, they wouldn't do a loan. Not at all. Okay? Now, I'll set that over here, otherwise I'll drop it again. All right. So let's be perfectly clear here now. There's some downsides to this. A, there are people sitting here who I very well know would not really, including myself, like to borrow more money. Now why? Why? Real simple. Robert, what's the current news rate? Well, no, you're retired, so you may not know, but 4% fair? 4 to 5% range. Okay. Ben, you agree?
We're at 4.1 right now.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good. There you go. That's probably the best point right there. So whatever we borrow, regardless of what the number is, it's costing us 4% per year extra to do it that way. That's a downside, because that 4% is not going to one of those items, it's going to the bank. Or if I loaned you the money, it'd be going to me. Or if Bill loaned us the money, it'd be going to him. Okay? Or if we did a bonding, it wouldn't be at 4%, it'd be about 2%, but it would be to each of us. Now, I brought up the bonds, and I'm bringing them up now because I have now talked to my bonding person who has helped me issue bonds in the past. That's not practical. right now because it doesn't get us cash in the time frame that we need it. Okay? This is something we could do if it's a vehicle we wanted to plan for next year or the year after perhaps, but not this year. Too short a time. Now, speaking of shortness of time, yes, we can. I've looked into that. It takes some changes in our documents, but we can do it. Okay? All right. Although I haven't discussed it with Chris, but our lawyer I did talk to. Okay, now, the downside also is when we asked for the $1 million loans, both of them, we started on that, if my memory serves me correctly, in like end of May, 1st of June, correct, on each one of those? Something like that?
You mean the closing dates were?
No. We started working with the bank.
It was, they were in late July, early August. It was-
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
closed in mid-January-ish.
Yeah, right.
That's my point.
Right.
Okay,
Six
my
or
point
7
is,
month period.
I was trying to recall what that
It's a
that
6 or
was.
7 month period.
Yeah, it's a 5 would be quick, right? Fair, Robert? No? What's quick?
If you have your act together and you've got all the necessary information, you can underwrite and close the line in 30 days.
I don't know if we can
If
do
you
that.
have your act together.
Yeah, I understand. I don't know if we can pull that off. But what I'm trying to say is really, the last 2 have taken 5, 6, 7 months to actually do. Is that fair to say?
There was a lot of ground plowed to get through those 2 that's already been done.
Uh-huh.
That's correct.
So that might help with it.
And that's one of the things I'm sure that took, caused it to take longer.
Okay, all right.
Didn't we get
It-
the money on January 1st of 2018?
No,
18, it was 18. My point is, we're cutting it close. I guess that's, my only point is, we're cutting it close right now. And Ben, you haven't been to the bank to ask them, have you, at all?
No.
No, sir.
Okay, all right. So my point is, we're at ground zero, and to go do this, the downside is, we might not have some of this cash as soon as we would like it. And if for some reason we got told no, which is a possibility, okay, distinct possibility, then the problem would be, we would be faced with a special assessment, just like what we're talking about here, okay? So the matter, the bottom line here is, this is a much more serious problem than I think everyone here has been willing to admit to themselves, or at least publicly. Because I've not heard anybody talk about needing another $1 million. Anybody raise your hand? Has anybody heard anything that number? Well, it's there. It's right there on the paper. And we might carve it down a little bit, but it's not 200 or 300,000. Thank you.
It is if you take it over time.
Right, and I will point out something from Mr. Reese's analysis of the similar communities that we had up during one of the presentations, what feels like 100 years ago, and we can send it out, that the average community with similar amenities, with a 24-man gate, with a golf course, with swimming, was about 1,800 to 2,400 a year. So that kind of fits in with Mr. Hammond's determination, or his estimate, if you will, that it's $1,000 more that is to get us on par with them. The Eagle Brook I'm thinking of, now they're a CDD, so it's a little bit different. High Vista, where the new White Heron is, that's 22, I think. Yeah, and there's several others that you can point to, and again, the board had access to that. It was in a previous meeting at some point where Mr. Reese did provide that analysis of the HOA community. So that's a good point. Mr. Potter, are you ready to?
Can I say something about our budget?
Sure.
Batteries going bad.
I don't have any idea. Still green.
Yeah,
I can.
I've changed.
I want to clarify a couple things about the budget. Yes, we could put off redoing the pool, okay? We have to keep our fingers crossed that we don't get a different inspector. You also need to understand that the damage that was done to it was done when teenagers threw pool furniture in there, and that's what all the chips and stuff are on the bottom. You also may not be aware that this year we did have to replace a pump. It's in that pump house, that little building that's in front of the pool. That was a surprise, so something else didn't get done this year. We had to take care of that. I would not be at all surprised if we have to replace another pump next year. So to keep the pool going and put zero there is probably, that's really hoping everything goes right and we don't lose a pump. Okay, so that's just to let that know. One other point I want to make, because I've heard this 3 times this week, is that, like, I got up and asked for $37,500 and it went through in the blink of an eye. How did that happen? And then we fight over all this other stuff. Well, when I come up representing the amenities committee and I have a request like $37,500 for herbicide and herbicide, that was previously approved. We don't actually let go of the money from the committee until this board agrees to let it go. But it was already part of the budget. It was last year's budget. So when I come up here and make these requests, I want everybody to understand that I'm working on last year's budget that was approved. And we still need to approve something now.
Thank you. Potter, do you have?
I think we should talk about the pool.
Okay.
I think we should talk about it.
So what would you like to say?
Well, pool's in bad shape, man. I went and saw it for myself today, and when I heard somebody talk about the ladder on the deep end being sunk in and it was this big, they weren't exaggerating. I get it. I get it. I walked, I saw the rust, I saw the chips. But then I gotta go back to tightening the belt. I gotta go back to tightening the belt, and I gotta go back to needing one. And when we're talking about taking away from the golf course and the herbicides and that $1 million investment, and then we're looking at a pool, you know what, you're right, you guys don't know me, you guys don't know me, you don't know my background, you don't know where I'm from, you don't know what I've done. And part of that I do on purpose, okay? Because I like people not seeing me coming. There you go. But as far as the pool is concerned, I'll let you guys in on something. I owned, operated, and sold that business. I had a pool company for a while, so I actually know about pools. And I think that some of those prices are a little bit high. But before I say that the price is high, what exactly are you guys trying to do to the pool? Is it a resurfacing thing?
Savannah, can you put up the Mannix quote? Because I actually
have
have that for, it's in the PDF, I think. Right, the one right there. So this is the quote from Mannix Pools. Whoops, there we go. This was done in 2017 when the amenities committee started putting all this stuff together.
Here, Bob. I want to see.
Yeah, no, well, come up here. Come up here. You can see it okay?
No, he was better up there than me.
I know, that's okay. I am the talent. So Mr. Tassin made it, said that under $50,000. That's essentially this part up here, which is was 61 back then, essentially. Again, there's where the top row and all those other that at the time were being considered, and there's the allowance for the ADA chairlift. There's a couple of options when you do that.
Is it required by code? I thought that, listen, I don't, from a commercial standpoint, do you guys have to change for the times?
No.
Or is it a grandfathered in thing?
We're grandfathered. We do not have to do that, is my understanding.
Our problem is if we change something significantly, we have to change everything, and then we're getting into all the doors in this building. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah,
I agree with you, Martha.
And it
I
is specific to the amenity that is being improved. So, for instance, at the pool, you'd have to have, and again, it's something for the committee to, or the community to consider for that pool gate.
you know, what kind of access for handicapped individuals get. But, you know, okay, so that's basically what that is. So, I mean, that's what that quote was from the Managed Pool Company, a very reputable pool company in this area.
Is that the only quote?
That's the only one they had at that time. And again, it's dated, it's 2017.
Okay, that's cool, that's good, that's good.
Is that, I mean, you're the expert.
I think it's a little inflated, but for what you're getting, for what you're looking at, it isn't bad.
I think it totals 95, and then you add the 10.
When we talk about you know, tightening the belt, I used to have it run into this scenario where people would just start crying poor, especially in business. Everybody cries poor.
Sure.
We could do a patch and paint. We could also do a patch and resin. There's just different options. I love resin. A patch and resin, you could pick a really nice color, and it would be a fraction of what it is, and it would probably get guaranteed for 10 years.
That's essentially what Mr. Tassin has brought forward, and he hasn't completed the quotes, and we haven't got there yet. But again, if you know, we've taken it from, you know, the 120 down to match something that we have in writing, we could take it. I mean, again, if you take it down to 50, let's just use a number, that does save another $50 on the assessment. But it doesn't guarantee you get the pool done because you're not sure if you're going to have the reserves to pull it from to pay for it. So you have to. But again, I get what you're saying, and maybe you hold off until they legally force us to do it.
We may still have to do the pump.
Well, I mean, you're right. I mean, there's always that possibility.
I know you probably don't know, but Martha, what kind of pumps you got in there? I mean, what kind of pumps? Are they just centrifugal plastics, or are they like? Are they the Panteras? Are they A-words?
Dude, you're talking.
Are they Steelies?
I know about golf shafts and I know about club heads. I don't know. I think they're 5 horsepower. What are they?
No, Mark Lutnar's.
Yeah, Mark Lutnar knew that.
Totally managed.
I want to say that they're 5 horsepower motors, but that's the only. But that's.
Does 5 horsepower sound right? I mean, does that sound right?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what's in my head right this second, but that could be the jockey pump that's at the irrigation pump. So yeah.
Martha, off the top of your head, do you remember how much?
I think that's right.
Well, I'm not talking about horsepower. I'm talking about price for replacing a pump.
What was you wrote the check recently, what was that pump?
Was it for a pump? Was it for a motor, or was it for one or the other? Because you can service them.
I think it was. I don't know. I'd have to look.
Fair.
I'm sorry. This is too.
It had been serviced enough and had to be replaced.
Yeah, it was.
We've already gone through our service.
I understand.
So regardless of that, though, you're talking about whether we do this or not, or whether we reserve a portion of that for that in case we have to do it, or, you know, again, they may never close us down. I don't know.
Tighten the belt, man.
So take it out? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm suggesting take this out because I could build any you got. Well, I don't. Like I said, I sold it, but there was a time that I could have built a pool in your backyard for $22,000 to $24,000.
Okay, Savannah, go back to the. Okay, no, I'm not trying to.
And then when it came to resurfacing and repairing, all depending on what you wanted to go with, it could start anywhere from 5 to 15. So if you look at the math, I mean.
Okay, I'm not arguing that. That one. So since this is live and in Technicolor, no, not that one. Stay right where you are. Make that 0. Nope, you're right there. You're right there. Take the 105 out. This is Mr. Potter's scenario. Make that 0.
I can't edit.
You can.
Is it?
should be helpful.
Is it PDF or?
No, it's an Excel. Is it? Oh, it's it. Can you get it out of protected view, or did I do that for mine inadvertently?
I think you did that.
Sorry. Okay.
Try to go on the.
Well, anyway, we can. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, go to this one. So somebody has a calculator? Somebody has one. Martha. 936,501.03 and subtract 105,000.
1003.
Yeah, yes. 8,
So you got it, Christopher. Christopher, divided by 1061, please.
1061. Oops.
So it's 783. I heard that number. 783.69. Somebody write that number, please. Somebody write that down so we don't lose. Ben, Mr. Treasurer, you're in charge of the money.
Not anymore.
Be a good boy.
783.61.
69.
69. Okay. So that's no pool funds at all. Nothing in that reserve at all. That would take it. I'll go back, Savannah, I'm sorry, go back to the amenities again. Just so we're all clear. So all these reserves, all of them are being kicked forward under Mr. Potter's thought. Does it, yes, Mrs. Rain?
But if you keep it in somewhere, put it back into the golf course,
Yes.
for what you need
What does that
to
look
cover
like?
the,
Yeah, what does it look like?
If you put 100 back into the top, to the Savannah,
You originally
Right back where you
reduced the golf
started.
course from
it makes it the same number.
yeah, but then you're covering the things that you needed so badly for the golf course. You
Oh, so, I mean, okay, well, let's talk about this a little bit more globally. Savannah, you're gonna kill me, but I need to go back to the full budget again, please. Savannah, it is. So, we're still talking about the same number of $882.66. You're just taking the money from pool and you're reallocating it to the top half of the amenities.
Right.
all right?
So, is this board comfortable with $182.66 increase? That's the question. Well, let's rate, yeah.
I guess I'll start the conversation. For me, it gives us, if we go ahead with our people and say, we're raising our assessment $25, that gives us at least $10 per home to put into our roads, It gives us something.
Okay. That's a
So
good.
that's where I stand right now.
Okay, so you would accept the 882 number.
I would have to go and talk with some people first. But
Okay.
that's the way I personally
Feel right now, okay? So just as a poll, there's no votes. If you'll accept that, raise your paw. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got 8, so we do have a
I
majority.
don't think it's enough, but.
Well, I don't think anybody on that voted for the original 300 thing suggests, but guys, we got to get through this. So,
I
Mr.
want to ask a question.
Yes, sir. We're just doing a poll. Go ahead.
We're doing this every year.
Hell yeah, dude. This is fun. This is a fun legislative process that is local government.
Can't we figure something out that's a little bit more sustainable? What I'm getting at is, wouldn't it be easier to swallow a pill that's only $50 increase a year?
Yeah, but
No
you
matter
can't.
what.
But legally,
No
we
matter
can't.
what.
But I get that. But that was kind of. But you can't be holding next year's board to this board's decision legally. You can say it's a little bit like the federal government. They do a 10-year spending plan. It's not really a 10-year spending plan. It's a 1-year spending plan.
We went 3 years with no raise.
Yeah, but the point is what he's saying. If you say that we're going to raise it,
No matter what.
if you're going to raise $100 a year for the next 30 years forever, and then we don't have to go through this process. But guess what? Circumstances change. You have pandemics. You have pumps blow up. You have road issues, and you're going to have different funding needs. And hopefully, you'll have some help. You won't have as much. You won't have to help me as much, or the golf course as much. So there'll be revenue, revenue is a bad word. So revenue realized back in from the assessment from the amenities. Hopefully, now, who knows? But that's why you can't do that, Steve. Unfortunately, that would be great if we could say, hey, we could all agree to $2,000 right now. We're going to raise it to $2,000. Then we wouldn't have to talk about this for a long time. We'd probably all be tarred and feathered out there, but. We could, and I'm being sarcastic, but I'm doing it to a point. Yeah, I guess give it up, right?
That's why the first committee starts this in, July?
June, usually. We did it in July because of the yeah, you're gonna,
And also, anybody that's on this year's board may not be on next year's.
correct.
Right.
So,
Yeah, again, I'm correct, Mr. Attorney, correct? That this year's board can't be holding, it's an annual.
Yeah, it's an annual deal.
Right. Yes, sir, Mr. Brennan?
Bob, do we need that road to be done this year? I don't see anything wrong with it.
Mr. Shire, you can speak to that?
I can speak to that. We are seeing separation in the seam in the middle of the road, which is the first indication that it's beginning to hit the end of its useful life. And the section we're talking about is from the four-way stop at the silos through all the way to the front of the community. In addition to that, we've had two areas that we've had to patch because of breakup, and that breakup that's gonna get worse, and it gets worse faster. Our assumption from our experience is, and Mark Lutnar is the expert on this. Mark does this for a living. I mean, he's not a paving company, but he builds communities. Our road, I mean, it needs to be done next year. Appreciate that probably your most important amenity is to have a road to drive on, as basic as that is. And if you'll look at your own community, now I'm selling asphalt, but if you look at your own community, think about when it's freshly paved and what your home looks like and what your streets look like. They look doggone good for about 5 or 6 years, and then they start looking aged, and we're certainly in that aged category. That road is up for, it was scheduled for repave, I think it was 2021 or 2022. We might be a year short on how we accumulated for it, but you respond to it when it shows you it needs it. And sometimes you can get an extra year out of it. Sometimes paving's on sale and you do it a year early. Now, I've had that happen in my association. So, but again, you can't expand it a whole lot more than 18 months to 2 years. And if you think about it, that is our highest traveled area that there is. The boulevard part from the four-way back with the number of people on it.
So again, to Mr. Shire's point, the decision to reduce this down to this level is going to make some very, very challenging decisions as we go through the year when he comes to us trying to, saying we need the road, or if if we have some sort of catastrophic failure in the south pump in the back that services Fairway Patio and club and golf villas and all this side of the golf course. And the thing, remember that the largest drainage basin in this community is the golf course, which the water flows through and then out through those pumps. So, I mean, that's kind of why the 150 assessments were assigned to the golf course, because it is part of this community. Again, we are rolling the dice here, folks, and we may get away with it. We might. Yes, Mr.
Point of clarification, the road is not an amenity, it's an asset. We've been responsible for that a long time. We've only been responsible for the amenities for 3 years. Just want to clarify that.
Yeah, it's an important asset, but it's still our responsibility. But I take your point. Anybody else?
Can we get a copy of all of these things, please?
You mean yes, I mean we can, you mean the modified ones?
Yes.
Sure.
Can you send those to me?
I'll be glad to, hopefully not in protected format. So.
Is our latest conclusion that we're looking at 783?
Well, we are at this, to me, based on what Mrs. Rain said and what Stephen says, we're back at 882, or whatever that, it'll be maybe $1 one way or who knows, but.
With a move to the amenities.
And that moves the pool reserve back to the amenities in that line item where herbicide and fertilizer and repair and maintenance. But remember, guys, that money is sitting there as a spending plan if the amenities don't need it. I mean, even if they do need it, they still have to come and ask for it. So the board's going to have to prioritize, very, very closely, especially as we get into the middle part of the year and as we get towards the end of the year, especially crossing our fingers during hurricane season. What was that special assessment when we did Pro 4? Was it
I think $54 a home.
something like that? Yeah. Was that what it was? I don't remember. It was 50. It was under 100, I know. But
We didn't have any savings back then. Now we have some savings, and that's what, when those events come forward, that's really what they're for.
Well, no, we would raise the assessment from 7 to 882, whatever the change works out. The CAM doesn't like change, so that number will even out somewhere. We'll put it in general reserve or take it out to make it even. I'll probably either make it 885 or 880, just to make it an easier number to say. But whatever. Do we, Mr. Potter? You're still looking at that number, like you want to try to find more room, or are you still thinking, or what's on your mind, sir? This is the time to talk about it, but we have everybody here and we're talking casually. So
I hear you, Bob, I just don't.
yeah,
I hear you, Bob.
I know. I'm not trying to. So do we have a consensus? I'm looking.
I don't know how we can consider that we have a consensus when we're looking at a potential 8-7 vote. That doesn't speak well to the community.
8-6. 14. That's okay. Go ahead.
So if
Or 9.
there's
John.
14 of us,
Eagle Palm will vote for it.
okay, but let's just say there's 8 to 7. Is that where we're at right now?
It will be if by the hand raise. By the hand raise, it would be 9 to 5.
9 to 5.
Correct.
It says a whole lot to the community if the board as a whole feels a lot more unified than that. And there's something rolling under the surface here that I don't think is being addressed. I think that there's a genuine fear among some of the presidents that you're not going to be able to collect the assessment. I do. I feel like I'm gonna have to do it. I've worked so many hours on this for so many years, and for those of you that are new on the board, and all of us as a board president, we have a different method of teaching ourselves and trying to learn. And the numbers to anybody that's new on this board are, at least in my feeble mind, are really hard. They're complicated. And so when, in my first year or two, and Bob would send this 21-page report of numbers, I just had to print the whole thing. I've printed every single financial report, 5 straight years, every single month. I probably printed more paper than everybody here combined. And then I have to go to my living room and get in my recliner and take the last month and this month and take a ruler and just go down those 21 pages. And I'm not going to tell you that in that first year, when I put that all aside, I understood. But I had the list, and I had a month to month, and then I got the next month, and then the next month, and it kept working like that. And finally, I got even more involved. And I finally gained a pretty good understanding. I've been to 2 boards at their president's request to try to help the boards and the residents to understand why we need this increase and what's at stake for all of us. And I want, and I hope most people here, that, and God, I say it every meeting, I can't help it. Everybody that lives here, if you go out the gate and you talk to anybody in town, you go to Publix or you go to Walmart, you know, we shop regular places and we know somebody at that Publix. I know a clerk by name at Walgreens. I know everybody in Doty's. You know what I'm saying? I know everybody at Richard's Coffee Shop by name, right? And once in a while somebody says, where do you live? And a little grin breaks out on my face. I live in a Cypresswood Golf and Country Club. It would break my heart if this goes away. And it's, guys, I know that it's tough. Nobody has to tell me about people that have some financial struggle. I've been there at different times in my life. But we've got a job to do. When Jim stood up here a while ago and said that if we got the $300, it's not enough, he's right. But the $300 gives us some breathing room. I have been working for a couple of years now. My personal calculation says that if we took the 300, that goes to $1,000 per resident, which is $83 a month. By my best calculation, we're not a free-floating community financially really sound till it gets to $1,500 a year. In my personal opinion, if we took the full 300, we're going to have to come back to the board for an annual increase of some amount on an annual basis to get us not to $1,000 a month, or not to $83 a month, but more like $125. And there's something else that hasn't been said yet. And I was hoping that we could get to a consensus without even having to bring it up yet, because it's hard. When we talk about what the golf course might produce in additional funds, if we took your wildest dream, and I'm sorry I don't remember who, but somebody got up here the other night and said that they thought that maybe the golf course could generate $900,000 a year. That's not going to happen. But let's just pick a number above anything that we put out in the past 5 years. The highest number was 419,000, I think. Say it went to 600,000. Every single thing above its net operating cost to operate that golf course is going to have to be invested in the proper equipment to maintain the golf course. We don't have the proper mower. We don't have the proper bush hog. We're mowing an investment in which we poured almost $1.7 million into. And we need a mower that's specifically designed for a golf course, and they make them. And then we need a bush hog that takes care of all that other stuff. Because what you're maintaining the golf course with, that piece of equipment, shouldn't be out there mowing the rough edges. So there's everything that the golf course would produce in terms of what we call net profit needs to go into equipment. It's not going to come to us to offset what the association is subsidizing the golf course for. And I don't really even like using that word subsidize, because you can't separate Cypresswood from its amenities. Cypresswood is a golf and country club and starts with the golf course. So if the golf course makes money, then Mike Howell's gonna say back to Bob Shade as the head of the LLC, we don't want you to pay us. We want, you could give us the money, but then the proper thing for us to do after that then is to say, but we want you to buy the proper lawnmower and take care of that golf course. Somebody got up here last night or the night before and roundly criticized the mowing and said the golf course, no, the golf course doesn't look like that guy said. Several weeks ago, because I called Bob, we had to mow because we had rain. Everybody remembers. And we finally had to mow, and it left tracks all along the boulevard. It looked terrible. And so the guy was right about that part. But Bob said to me, well, and we talked about this rain and the mud and the tracks, but the grass is going to fill all of that, and it has. Now it looks nice again. But we don't want to continue to think that we're going to maintain an almost $2 million investment on 40-year-old equipment that wasn't really made to maintain what we've invested in. So when we're looking at this, we need to understand that we would just be dancing in the street if the golf course could get enough revenue to pay its way. But then we have to keep in mind, because the amenities really belong to us. We're talking about this LLC and the CCA as if it was two different things, and for legal purposes, you can make that argument. But as a community, the LLC and the Cypresswood Golf and Country Club, the CCA, it's the same thing. It's all one entity. We don't have a golf and country club. We might can do and go through some legal trickery. We might can redo some documents, or we might can call it something else. But it's us and it's ours. And so when we say that we don't want to go for 300, and some of you have valid concerns, I understand that, but 300 is not enough. So and I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't know your name. When you said that it probably is not a good idea to take the $105,000 we showed for the pool totally out of the budget. If we want to take the pool out this year, okay. But then you said we need to put that money back up here, and we really do. I mean, to think that we just put $1.7 million and we're not going to properly fertilize, we're not going to do the agronomics. God, it gives me chill bumps to think we're that stupid.
It's okay.
No, I just offended everybody. Again, not the first time. Good points.
Okay. So, what's the next step? We schedule another special meeting to bring this to a close. Do we have? Yeah.
I'd like to hear from those that didn't want to raise it at all, some other people. I don't know if Tom's gone or not.
I've got a casual comment. Some people aren't going to like what I'm fixing to say. Those of you that are most benefited by the pool and by the pumps, fairway patio, garden patio, villas on the green, golf villas, you all voted no. Almost none of you have a pool. You're one of the most people that benefit from the pumps, and yet you vote no to help support what benefits you more than it does a lot of the other people here. And that's probably makes some people mad, but that's just the way I see it.
Okay. Murphy, do you have any comments you'd like to share with the group? If you'd like to, you don't have to. I mean, no,
Well,
not.
I am just open to the fact that I have said from the beginning that I'm pleased that we're talking some type of compromise. And we do it in our personal budgets, and in my HOA, I do not have a single person, and I think, our CAM person here can tell you that most of our people pay. We do not have a big problem with paying their assessments. However, I do have concerns for several of them that this may be a hardship. All I am asking for from our godfellows, and I think it's wrong, I'm gonna be blunt back to some of you. Let people express themselves, and let's share views. We may not agree. Some of my best friends I've served on boards with. We didn't agree, but we were, you don't even hear the term anymore, respectfully disagree, do we? It goes all the way from Washington down. That really bothers me. That really bothers me. So all I'm saying, Bob, is that I'm open to what has been put forth tonight, throw out some ideas. Somewhere we have to try to tighten our budgets. And I'm faced with that situation with the golf fellas. And all of our people have been tremendously cooperative and supportive. I have not had one call or talk to the person. And I'm going to listen to the people as long as I'm there present. When somebody else takes it over, they can use a different approach. So out of respect to all of you, I hope you will respect all of us, that we're trying to do what we think is right. I own property in here, and I certainly don't want to do anything to create a situation where my property value goes down. And I have been a strong advocate of the golf course to support it, even though I don't participate in due to reasons, fiscal reasons. But I have people that come back with me with the same old arguments. We don't use the pool, we don't use all these other things, but yet I think they're great amenities for our thing. So I'm open to, as long as we can talk about some type of compromise. So let's move forward on that.
Do you feel like that's where we're at?
I think we're at the point where suggestions have been made tonight that I can live with.
So if this would come up for a vote, you'd be a yes.
I say, well, right now I would, but I'm like somebody said, I've always gone back and I go back and talk with the people in my thing, and I want to do that. Share the views. They have all been very open, and I sent out today, never got one call to say, this is where we are, this is what we're going to meet again tonight. So yes, I would be open to it. I'm not going to sit here and say, yes, I'm going to vote yes or no.
Okay. All right, Mr. Brennan?
Ditto here.
Oh, ditto, gotcha. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to skip past you, Mr. Hammond.
Same way.
Okay. Richard? Yes, you're a yes, okay. Mr. Potter?
I think I can propose this. I really do. I
Okay.
propose it. It's an easier sell. I mean, it's.
Mr. Potter thinks he can propose it to his board, or to his people.
It'd be an increase of 100 and what, 180?
Well, again, it's somewhere between 180 to 185, depending. And again, I need to make sure the CAM sees what we've done and make sure the numbers wash.
What is the monthly? Does anybody know?
Well, it depends which way. It's just use the higher number at 185 divided by 12, whatever that ends up being.
Bob, I think this gentleman asked a question,
Oh.
and I would request it from you also. That these discussions we've had and some of the changes, if you would share that with
Yep.
us, I know it's asking you to do more.
No, that's
If you would
okay.
do that,
I'll be back here at 3 a.m. like I always am to start another wonderful day. Yes, we'll share all this information once it gets finalized with that. I mean, remember though, hey, I mean, in all seriousness, and I'm plugging the Savaris group, if you go to YouTube and you search Savaris, these things are broadcast. So you can rewatch parts of it, or if you want to stream every one of them beginning back in July, where this group of people approved all those, but those are all streamed. That's the value of these wonderful people. Yeah, there you go. Raise your fees. I heard that. And if we're going to get a PR or an HR, yes, sir.
I would suggest that we adjourn this work session in favor of
think we, what, Mr., I think that, hold on. Do we have a legal requirement to post notice for our HOA? Just to answer, because I don't think we can do it tomorrow, is my understanding. And I'm not sure Savaris can do it to broadcast it. And again, we need, I feel like we should notice the public, so if somebody wants to make public commentary, we give them that choice, to Mr. Murphy's point.
What I'm looking for is a time.
Yes, so,
Make a motion, but-
okay, Mrs. Rain?
I would just like to have some time to be able to talk with you too.
Yes, me too.
Okay, so, Mr. Brennan, sorry.
Motion that we have it next Tuesday.
Well, hold on, we've got more important people to discuss when they can do it, and that's the people that are broadcasting.
Is Monday okay?
Monday's okay by me, if we can do it Monday. No, Steve Potter cannot do it Monday, it's a thumbs down. What's our,
Tuesday's election day.
yeah, we're not doing it
Tuesday's
Tuesday.
election day.
We can't do it Tuesday because election day.
I guess you could do Thursday. Fairway is actually having their meeting to vote on Thursday, a week from tomorrow. Yeah, so we could do it next Wednesday if that's, you don't wanna do it tomorrow.
What about Wednesday? Well, Wednesday it's open too. I mean, we're open Monday, we're open Sunday, and then we're open all the time, so that we're gonna,
November 4th, is that what you're saying?
I don't know what Wednesday's date is. I do not have.
Fourth.
This is
When-
work.
Yeah.
Wednesday, yeah, it's after election day, right?
Yeah, you could always consider a Sunday, but
Mr. Brennan?
I'm gonna make everybody happy and let them know that Dave Cramp is gonna be back for the next meeting.
That just makes you happy.
Yeah, but you know something, you may not realize it.
So,
I wouldn't want to be sitting in your shoe right now, but you've actually helped us.
yes, he has. He's got asked some very important questions. And he took the time to get it, to ask people who know instead of listening to scuttlebutt and rumors, which is appreciated. Monique?
yes.
Let's get back to our date. Oh, do we have a, yes, Mr. Tasson? I'm
Just want a clarification real quick, for those who are saying, gee, I gotta go back and talk to my people, it comes out to 50 cents a day, if you wanna put a pencil to it.
We could do tomorrow night, I really want to do tomorrow.
50 cents a day.
We could do
And the other thing is,
Sunday, Monday,
that was mentioned
we
earlier,
could do
Bob,
Tuesday,
by
she's
you,
kind of tied up.
We're not doing Tuesday. I'm
Wednesday.
sorry.
I think the other thing, for clarification, I think that you mentioned the thing that I believe Rick Reed put out comparing a whole bunch of communities. And showing the report, you made reference to that.
I made reference to a couple of the communities on that list. There's a big giant list, and I can send that out to the board.
The only point of clarification I wanted to make was, he didn't include, the, golf course as one of the items that, whether they had or not had, a clubhouse, whether they had or not had, a restaurant, whether they had or not had, and whether or not they had, access to boating on a lake, another important item for a number of these communities, and also what the average price was per house. Those things I think are very important, and were not included in this comparison. I don't know why.
Well, I think that he said that if we needed it, he would get it for us, and I don't think, it really, at this point, makes any difference. I know where there's a golf course in the communities, and I use those as a reference, just to clarify, or just to expound on Mr. Hammond's point that the need is about 1,000 more total, which gets us up in that neighborhood with the rest of those neighborhoods.
For the record, if any of your people tell you that will make, whatever it is, will make you the highest, that's not correct.
That's true.
I represent Enclave. Enclave is currently $260 a month when you include the CCA and our HOA fees. That's $3,120 a year. The 300 was we had worked it out where we might make it right at $295. So that would be the highest so far in Cypresswood. I don't see anybody else coming next to that.
Well, and again, you're Cypresswood's unique that it has different kinds of homes, and yours is of the included maintenance homes in Cypresswood. Okay, so 11. I'm saying Wednesday the 4th is what I'm saying. Steve, is that You good? Steve, you got the thumbs up? Mr. Murphy, I see you shaking your head. I can hear it from here. Richard, you're good?
I'll have Dave.
Dave will get here, or else you're going to drag him here, right? So you don't have to do this again. Mr. Hammond, you good?
I'm with that.
Everybody
I have
else?
the motion, I don't hear a second.
There's no, I'll call the meeting. I don't need a
Oh,
motion.
okay.
I don't need it. This is a workshop.
6 o'clock?
6 a.m., 6 p.m., 3 a.m., 9 p.m. I'm here, so you just tell me when you want to do it. 6 p.m. on Wednesday. For final resolution.